The biggest bottleneck in your business, it's not the market, it's not your team, it's not your strategy. It's you. And I don't mean in some abstract way. I mean literally. Every challenge you're facing, hiring, delegation, team performance, can be traced back to one thing: how you lead. You already know what needs to happen. You know delegation is important. You know the right hires will make your life easier. You know you shouldn't be involved in every little decision. So why aren't you actually doing it? Let's talk about it. I've worked with founders, CEOs, and executives who have tried everything. They've read the books, they've taken the courses, they've hired the consultants, they've built better systems because they're trying to fix a leadership problem with a business solution. Here's an example. I was coaching a founder who said, "I know I need to delegate more, but every time I do, something slips through the cracks. It's just easier if I handle it." Now, on the surface, this sounds like a hiring problem. So most consultants would say, you need a better hiring process. You need to set clearer expectations. But none of that mattered, because when we dug deeper, we uncovered the real issue. It wasn't that he didn't have the right people. It wasn't that his team couldn't handle it. It was that he didn't actually want to let go. Because when he wasn't the one solving problems, he felt replaceable. He wasn't afraid his team would fail. He was afraid of not being needed. See, at home, when he was on vacation with his wife and family, he was always on his phone, always taking calls, always checking in. So why would he do that? Because in his mind, when his wife saw how important he was, she would respect him more. He wasn't consciously thinking, I need my wife to admire me. But on some deeper level, that's what was happening. And at work, he didn't want to let go. Not because he didn't trust his team, but because if they didn't need him, then who was he? That's why he kept finding reasons to stay involved. That's why he always stepped in, even when he didn't have to. And that's why he stayed stuck, because no delegation framework was going to solve an identity issue. And this is what happens to so many leaders without realizing it. They think the problem is out there, the tools, the people, the timing. But the real shift starts when they realize it's something in them that needs to evolve. And once they see that, the next question becomes, where do I begin? That's where the model I use with every founder and leadership team comes in. The way I work with every business is built around 3 core foundations, what I call the conscious leadership pyramid. Think about it like a triangle. I train jiu-jitsu, and there's a concept Henry Gracie talks about called the pyramid principle. The idea that your control, stability, and your ability to execute all come from the strength of your foundation. Leadership works the same way. Your leadership is built on 3 core foundations. First are the practices. These are the habits and tools you use daily. Second is the ways of being, how you show up as a leader. And third, your beliefs. These are the stories you tell yourself. This is your internal operating system. Even if one of these is weak, your leadership becomes unstable. So when I work with leaders, we start where they're comfortable, with the business tools. But what happens almost every time is the tools alone aren't enough. That's when we start looking at something deeper, how they're showing up. And if that still doesn't shift things, we go all the way down to the foundation, the beliefs and the mental frameworks that are silently running the show. Let me walk you through how this actually works. Most leadership coaching starts and ends here. This is where the strategy, delegation frameworks, hiring processes, team alignment tools, and business systems live. And yes, these are important, but here's the problem. You already have access to these tools. They start saying things like, this won't work for my team, or my situation is unique. So if the answer was, learn the right strategy, you wouldn't be stuck. So at first, we worked the tools. Delegation, hiring, decision-making frameworks. For a while, these work. But then something breaks. Not the tool, the person. They're in the books, podcasts, courses. You can Google them right now. That's the moment. I know we're no longer dealing with a strategy problem. We're bumping up against how they're being as a leader. Your team doesn't just listen to what you say, they respond to how you show up. If you're stressed out, overwhelmed, and reactive, guess what? Your team mirrors that energy. Hey, if you're calm, clear, and decisive, your team follows that too. I've worked with many leaders who have said, I don't get why my team never takes ownership of anything. I have to push them constantly. But when we looked at how they showed up, we saw the real issue. Anytime something went wrong, they would immediately step in and fix it. So their teams never had to take ownership because they knew their boss would always step in. So when they shifted from being a hero to becoming a coach, things started to move. But here's the thing. They couldn't have made that shift if they hadn't challenged their beliefs. Because what drives your way of being, what shapes your decisions before you even realize it, is your mental framework. And that's what's next. This is the deepest layer, the one most people aren't aware of and rarely look at. It's the beliefs and mental frameworks that shape how you lead. A founder who can't step away doesn't need a better operating system. They need to shift their belief that their value comes from being involved in everything. They need to shift the belief that no one else can do it as well as they can. A CEO who micromanages doesn't need a better delegation framework. Because here's the truth. If you don't shift those underlying beliefs, it won't matter how good the systems or strategies are. They'll either get misused, resisted, or dropped the moment things get hard. This is where most leaders stall out. But it's also where real transformation begins. So if you're hitting that leadership ceiling, ask yourself, what's really going on here? What belief or behavior is keeping me stuck? What needs to shift in me before I reach for another tool or tactic? Because at the end of the day, your business grows when you do. When I work with leaders who want big breakthroughs, this is where we focus. So if this resonated and you're ready to go deeper, subscribe or book a call. This is where real leadership transformation begins.